Well, good evening to all. I would like to call this meeting to order and to welcome everyone. Welcome all members of council and our staff, Megan Tidhernick, our planner for ACW, all members of the public that are joining us this evening. I would like to indicate at the outset that meetings of council are live streamed on the township's official website in accordance with the live streaming and virtual participation of meetings policy. By attending this meeting, attendees and participants are consenting to their image, voice, and comments being recorded and available for public viewing on the township's website. Do any members of council have a disclosure of pecuniary interest or potential conflict of interest of any agenda item that we have this evening?
No.
Seeing none, I thank you for that. I would entertain a mover and a seconder to adjourn our regular council meeting and open our Committee of Adjustment meeting to review minor variance applications MV-2024-04 Tour and MV-2024-05 Fulham. And that is moved by Councillor Hickey and Forrester. All in favor of the motion? And that is carried. I thank you very much. And I would like to open our Committee of Adjustment and ask if any members have a pecuniary interest or potential conflict of interest of this agenda this evening.
No.
Seeing none, I will now pass it over to our County Planner, Megan Tidhernick, to review application file MV-2024-04 Tour. Please, Megan. Thank you.
Good evening. Just 1 second while I get myself technologically set up. Okay. Good morning, Mayor and members of Council. Thank you. Tonight we have a minor variance application for a proposed new development at 83347 David Drive. Here you can see the 2020 aerial photo of the vacant land. The property is outlined in orange and with the two lines showing the 25-year, this one to the west, and the 100-year erosion hazards from Maitland Valley Conservation Authority. The entire property is regulated due to the hazard of Lake Huron. Here we have the proposed site plan. You can see how the house is going to be oriented. The required yard setback is 7.5 meters, where 4.86 meters is being proposed. This is on the east side here. This would be a reduction of 2.64 meters, and the variance is to allow the house to be located further from the hazard of Lake Huron. The remainder of the yards do not require a variance. I do want to note that the stairs, the exterior stairs on the south side will allow for an encroachment of 1.5 meters, and they are requesting 2.5 meters, so that is not a variance. There was some question about that in some comments later on, but I just wanted to point that out to council that that is not a variance that is being applied for. I just want to go back to this photo for a quick second here. So the ACW zoning bylaw states that the top of bank setback for all new development is the 100-year erosion hazard. So that is this line right here. If you can see my cursor, it is the line to the right of the screen. A geotechnical study was provided as part of this application. Maitland Valley has reviewed this study and accepted the findings. MVCA and the building department have been working closely with the applicants on this project. So we did have some agency comments. After reviewing the geotechnical study, MVCA did provide comment that there was no concern, but they would be requiring a permit for the development. That is pretty standard. Our ACW building department has reviewed the project as well, and they have no concerns with the proposed development. It is noted that they are still working with the applicant on the septic system location, and that can be addressed at the time of permitting. They also wanted to say that development charges will apply because it is a vacant lot. We did have 2 public comments based on this application. So at the time of writing my report, there was only one, and that was submitted by email. So the neighbor that submitted that one lives to the west of the property, and they are concerned with lot grading and drainage having effect on their property, running downhill. So that's certainly a fair comment, but looking at the property, it was determined that at the time of permitting, that could be addressed appropriately. There was also the question of the location of the septic system causing a concern for an impact to their well. Other regulations determine the setbacks from a septic to a well, and that was determined that the location was adequate distance. And so from my understanding, that is addressed appropriately. Another comment came in from a neighbor yesterday regarding tree cutting. So I spoke with our Public Works Department, and there was some tree clearing along the road allowance that occurred in summer of 2023. And then there was subsequent clearing of trees by the landowners on their own property. They had supplied me with information that 13 ash trees were removed from their own property. They were dead or in the process of dying. So that is kind of the situation with the tree clearing. So some of it was done on the road allowance, and that was done by ACW Public Works Department. There was also concern that the size of the building was too large for the area. And I guess that is to be seen, remain to be seen by council. That is up to you guys if you deem it appropriate or not. So the recommendation from the planning department is that the council of the township of Ashfield-Colborne-Wawanosh approve minor variance application MV04 2024 on the basis that it is minor in nature and the reduction in the front yard setback is required to ensure development is located further from the erosion hazard of Lake Huron.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Megan. And as this is a public meeting, I will offer the opportunity for public input. And so at this time, if anyone would like to speak in opposition to this application, please go to the microphone and identify yourself first and last name. If I see none, is there anyone that would like to? Oh, I'm sorry, please. Go to the microphone and identify yourself first and last name, please, and your comments. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Brenda Martin, and my husband and I are property owners on the west side of the applicant's property. May I just go ahead?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Please go ahead with your comments. Thank you.
Our property owners at 83337 David Court, and I'm here to express our concerns regarding the minor variances requested for the applicant's property. May I first say that we're not here as grumpy neighbors. It's not our intention to be a bad neighbor or interfere with Greg and Myra's plans. We're here to bring forward what we feel are legitimate questions and concerns in regards to the potential impact on our property and the surrounding shared laneways and walkways. Our comments were submitted on Thursday by way of a letter, and I believe this has been already distributed to committee members. So likely there's not a need to read it through word for word. Our property, as I mentioned, is located to the immediate west side and downgrade of the applicant's property. The grade of the lands between the two properties is such that the main floor level and basement of our property is entirely below ground level of the applicant's property. Our existing cottage structure, retaining wall, driveway, and private water well are all located downgrade from the applicant's property, but also at the most eastern part of our property. So due to this downgrade close proximity location, we believe our property would be the most vulnerable to and most directly impacted by any changes in water flow runoff and subsequent increased erosion exposure. In addition to the water flow erosion concerns, we have concerns about the location of any new septic system in relation to our existing water well, which is again downgrade from the applicant's property. For the reasons set out in our letter, we are not in favor of granting the variance request as presented. But in summary, basically we are concerned that granting the minor variances could lead to negative consequences for our property and the surrounding areas. We appreciate the opportunity to bring forward our comments and ask for the committee's support and consideration of what we see as legitimate concerns. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Brenda. Is there anyone else that would care to make any comments in opposition to this application at this time? And seeing none, is there anyone that would like to speak in favor of this application at this time? And would the applicant care to make any comments at this time? And if so, please go to the microphone, identify yourself, and your comments are welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Myra Tour. My husband is Greg Tour. Did not expect that I would be having to say anything. The one thing that we would really like to do, just to go back to what Brenda has said, we really are looking forward to having good neighbors. We wouldn't want anything to happen that we would be causing or preventing for the good neighbor relationship or the contamination of any water. We are responsible homeowners. We are responsible property owners. We have been working with the guidance of the ACW and the Conservation Authority all along. And we feel that we've been guided appropriately. We've pivoted where we've needed to in order to reduce size, move structure, and do all of those things. And I feel that we would have changed if we needed to, but based on the information and the professional advice that we have sought, we think that we are doing everything as you would like us to do. And I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for your comments, Myra. And with that, I will now, is there anyone else that would like to speak in favor of the applicant at this time? And if not, I will turn it now to council if there are any questions or comments to our planner on this application. Councillor Hickey first, please.
Thank you. A question for staff on the water. There was the comment about the drinking well of the current property would be lower than the septic of the proposed property. Is there any concern about that as far as the Weeper system or anything for the drinking system?
Thank you for that. I'll defer to Brett. Would you like to comment on that, please?
The only setback that we look at when we issue the permits it's 50 feet, kind of straight across. It doesn't follow elevation. It's just 50 feet out. So there's no, I guess, thought of elevation when they do that. As long as you're 50 feet one way or the other, that complies with the code and the permits are subsequently issued. There's lots of scenarios like that through the lakeshore that exist. And it's never been an issue that we've been made aware of when we do these types of systems, but there's nothing that takes into account that elevation change.
Okay, good to that. Thank you for that. Any further comments or questions? And I'll go to Councillor Forster, please.
Okay, thanks, Glenn. You had a comment about the size of the building. So what percentage of that lot would be under a roof? Does that apply here, or I've heard about it in towns south of here, but not about here. Thanks.
Okay, thanks for the question. Megan, please.
Yeah, so thank you for that question. I don't have the exact number, but it did meet the zoning requirements of lot coverage.
Thank you for that. Councillor Blake and then Miltenberg, please.
Thank you. This is a question for staff. Is a conventional septic system something that's suitable for this property? Or would the applicant be looking at a different style of system, more of maybe a holding tank with a annual pump out or whatnot? Just to kind of clear the air a little bit about that potential hazard to the drinking water down below.
Okay, thank you for that. Staff, please.
So tertiary systems currently proposed for the property. There's an alternative location as part of just, the process here that cites a location for a holding tank should there become an issue with the system down the road and it would no longer fit the site. So both ideas are thought of, but right now a tertiary is proposed and there is an alternate location for future holding tank should erosion or something occur that requires its installation.
Okay, thank you for that response. You're good to that, Councillor Blake. Councillor Miltenberg, please.
Yeah, well, it sounds like it's meeting all the boxes. You're recommending it, and staff is saying it's going to be okay, but I also understand the concerns. Septic systems are, as you say, tertiary waters, and most wells are not affected by surface runoff unless you're Walkerton or something like that, right? Although I can see why you would be concerned. The lot size, it is what it is. If it's legal, I guess I'd like you to expand on the fact that I can see where the drainage would be a concern. We've seen that in certain areas in, say, Port Albert, where the next guy builds and then everybody else is, basement floods or whatever. So your answer was that could be addressed at the time of the building permit and the site plans. And can you explain how that would be addressed?
Thank you for the question. Staff, please. Brett.
We would, a lot of times, even with the Maitland Valley permits, we try and push as much water from downspouts and everything as we can away from the top of bank. If it does need to come down, it's piped down to a spot where they can outlet to. I know we do have a road allowance between the properties down there, so our property separates these properties. They do not touch each other, so it'd have to cross our road first, and if we ran into a problem with drainage, we'd have to work with our public works on that. They would be involved when we look at this drainage plan to ensure the water can safely travel where it needs to go, but we generally try and keep it on site so it runs and has time to dissipate. But there will be alterations to the drainage. There's no, we can't change that. We just try and keep it flowing in a way that it always has, and try not to direct it so it's pointing kind of in one direction where it causes erosion problems and will cause problems for any neighbors. But it would have to cross our road first either way, and we'd have to look at that if it did begin to cause issues for the neighbor. As council's aware, drainage it's a high priority for us, and we take it very seriously. And you get into tight areas, it becomes more and more of a challenge, especially where the infrastructure doesn't exist, which there isn't a lot here. We just find ways to allow it have time to hit the ground as much as it can before it goes. So that's why we try and direct it to the top side first, away from the bank, and then it has time through the ditches and everything there to naturally absorb and minimize the impacts downstream. But and then hopefully it stays somewhat as it always has, because right now the water will flow down the top of the bank and run too. It happens right now too. We just try and keep that and maintain that same kind of flow at the end of the day.
Okay, thank you for that. Please, you're good with that, or a follow-up, please?
Yes, follow-up, please. Thank you, Brett. That was a very complete answer. And I have complete confidence in you, which is why I asked for that. I am cognizant that I've worked with you for many years, and I know you're very good at your job and you'll think of this. So I am disposed to grant this, but I would ask that if I am the applicant, and I don't know you as well, and I'm more worried that maybe the drainage would be my biggest concern, actually. So at the site plan, let's say it doesn't work out. We think it's going to, and then something doesn't happen or whatever. What would be a safety valve for, the neighbor? Would they take pictures first, or would they then come to council, or just deal with you? Like, if your plan, which I think will work, doesn't work, what happens next?
Thanks for the question. Brett, please.
In this case, because the road separates, if it was adjacent property, this property's got road on 3 sides, so odds are it's coming off the roadway somewhere. We would start with working with our public works crew. That's probably where the concern would come from first, from any owner, because it would be coming off our road, and then the public works would in turn come back if the permit's still open, to figure out how we're going to deal with it. If it's closed and something occurs because of an alteration or something that was just unforeseen, then we just got to find a way and work. Hopefully we can come up with a solution still at that point. But it is trickier once permits are closed. But before permits are issued, if something's identified, we don't issue the permit if it's going to cause a problem. But after that, it does get hard to predict the future. But odds are any solution probably starts with our public works. Just by nature, it's almost in an island with three roads here.
Okay, thank you. An additional comment, please, or question?
Just a additional comment. So I know that historically, building permits often stay open a little longer than we intend them to. What would we expect this building permit or this site plan permit or whatever it's called about the water to stay open, so that there would be at least a season of water to go through? Is that the idea, that you'd leave it open for a year or something like that to make sure it is good in all seasons?
Thanks for the question. Brett, please.
So if, any property, this is a statement, if they can, build their house and have the grading done in 1 month, then it's done in a month. There's no holding things up to see if it works. Part of the process is we do get a letter from the surveyor or engineer saying it was built to conformance of the plan. And generally that's the process. There is no keeping things open to make sure it works. It just, when it's done and they call, if it's done, it's done. So, and if it's done as per plan, then that's that.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you. Any additional questions or comments from council? If not, it has been recommended for approval of this application, and I would entertain a mover and a seconder that Ashfield-Colborne-Wawanosh Committee of Adjustment approves the minor variance MV-2024-04 Truer as submitted, subject to the conditions as noted in the planner's report. Moved by Councillor Miltenberg, seconded by Councillor Hickey. All in favor of the motion? And that is carried. I thank you. Megan, what effective public and agency comments would you recommend to us on this decision, please?
So the effective public and agency comments is 5A and 3B. So public comments were received on issues regarding grading and drainage, the size of the proposed development, setbacks, as well as the cutting of trees. Comments were thoroughly considered, but did not influence the decision to approve the application. And 3B, agency comments were received in support of the application, the effect of which resulted in a decision to approve.
Thank you very much. So I will ask council if we are in support of the effective public and agency comments on this decision, be 5A and 3B by a show of hands, please. And that is supported by council. Thank you very much. Thank you for that, Megan. And now would you please address us on item 3.2, which is the minor variance application file MV-2024-05, Fulham, please.
Okay, minor variance MV-05-2024. This is at location 81197 Grist Mill Line. There we go. So this is the aerial photo of the proposed property. The applicant is seeking to construct a 12 by 16 shed in the front yard. This image, I will say, does not show the new house that has been built since the 2020. So envision a house to the west or rear of the lot in here. So the new shed is going to be to the front. So this is the proposed site plan. As I mentioned, the new house location and their small garden shed is proposed to be in the front yard. There were no comments, no public comments on this application to date. So that was outlined in my report. ACW Building Department had no concerns with the proposed development at this time. All other setbacks from lot lines were being adhered to. This is strictly just a location variance. So pretty easy on this one. The council, I am recommending that the council of the township of Ashfield-Colborne-Wawanosh approve minor variance application MV05 2024 on the basis that it is minor in nature and the shed will comply with all other provisions in the bylaw.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Megan. And again, this is a public meeting, and so I will ask if there is anyone opposed to this application that would care to comment at this time. Is there anyone that would like to speak in favor of this application? Seeing none, would the applicant care to make any comments? And if not, I'll open it up to council if there are any questions or comments of our planner on this application. Seeing none, I will entertain a mover and a seconder that Ashfield-Colborne-Wawanosh Committee of Adjustment approves the minor variance application MV-2024-05 Fulham as submitted, subject to the conditions as noted in the planner's report. A mover and a seconder for this. Deputy Mayor Vanstone and Councillor Blake. All in favor of the motion? And that is carried. I thank you. Megan, do you have any comment for us as to the effect of public and agency comments on this decision, please?
So the effect of public and agent comments are 2A, no public comments were received on this application, so there was no effect on the decision. And 3B, agency comments were received in support of the application, the effect of which resulted in a decision to approve.
Thank you very much for that. So again, I will ask for a show of hands if council is in support of the effect of public and agency comments in this decision, be 2A and 3B. And that is supported by council. Thank you very much. And thanks very much, Megan, for that presentation. I will now entertain a mover and a seconder to close the public meeting, the Committee of Adjustment. Councillor Blake and Forrester, all in favor of the motion? And that is carried. I thank you very much. And now I'll entertain a motion to reconvene our regular council meeting, please. Councillor Miltenberg and Forrester, all in favor of the motion? And that is carried. I thank you. Other planning items tonight is 4.1. That is the zoning bylaw update of the maps. This report was prepared by Selena McIntosh and Denise Van Amersfoort as discussed and under direction of our council meeting of the 18th of June. So I will ask, it has been suggested that we consider the adoption of this in the bylaw in section 5. And I would entertain a mover and a seconder that the council, the corporation of the township of Ashfield-Colborne-Wawanosh has held a public meeting pursuant to section 34 in brackets 12 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990, with respect to a proposed zoning bylaw. And whereas certain changes have been made to the proposed bylaw after holding of the public meeting, now therefore the council of the corporation of the township of Ashfield-Colborne-Wawanosh hereby resolves that pursuant to section 34 in brackets 17 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990, no further notice is to be given in respect of the proposed bylaw. A mover and a seconder for this, please. Councillor Hickey moves, Forrester seconds. All in favor of the motion? Oh, please, absolutely a comment. Councillor Miltenberg, please.
Yeah. As a member of council, this was discussed by council, so I am going to vote for it. But I will say that after the last meeting, and I've been on council for 10 years, I've never been so unsettled. Every recommendation from the planning was met with absolutely not by several members of council that neither asked questions, nor gave explanations. And I asked for them, and we can be polarized, we can have different opinions, but unless you say why you're voting for something, I think it's unfair to the people who are watching, and it certainly doesn't do our council any good. So I hope going forward we have more conversations like we had tonight, where we asked the planner questions and we voted. And that's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Any further questions or comments on this motion? And if not, all in favor of the motion is read. And that is carried. Thank you very much. And thank you for your comments, Councillor Miltenberg. 4.2 is a delegated consents on July of 2024. It has been presented by our planner for information purposes. Councillor Miltenberg, please.
I know I've asked this before, but I'm a little slow. And I know it's because of a provincial things. In the past, this would have come to us.
That's correct, yes. So any consent application that comes through, that after giving of the public notice, if there is no opposition to it, or if there's no comments that would, jeopardize a recommendation, it goes through. So it kind of, I guess it cuts the red tape, so to speak.
Please, and thank you for that, Clerk. Councillor Miltenberg, please.
So this is just for clarification. So the one that came forward tonight, is the reason it came forward is it was opposition, or is that something totally different?
Minor variances are something different. So the delegated consents, those are severances. So where a severance is not disputed, then it would move through the motion. If it was disputed, it would come forward for decision.
Thank you.
Okay, you're good with that? Okay, thank you very much for that. And I will now move on to the bylaws under section 5 and 5.1 specifically. Is it okay to go around the room with the group of council? Is that okay? So it would be moved by Deputy Mayor Vanstone, seconded by Councillor Hickey, that leave be given to introduce bylaw number 43-2024, being a bylaw to amend the zoning bylaw 32-2008 for the township of Ashfield-Colborne-Wawanosh, and that it now be read severally, a first, second, and third time, and finally passed this 9th day of July, 2024. All in favor of the motion is read. And that is carried. I thank you. The confirmatory bylaw would be moved by Councillor Miltenberg and seconded by Councillor Forrester, that leave be given to introduce bylaw number 44-2024, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Township of Ashfield-Colborne-Wawanosh Council meeting held on July 9th, 2024, and that it now be read severally, a first, second, and third time, and finally passed this 9th day of July, 2024. All in favor of the motion. That again is carried, and a motion moved by Councillor Blake, seconded by Councillor Forrester, that Ashfield-Colborne-Wawanosh Township Council does now adjourn to meet again on July 16th at 9 a.m. or at the call of the mayor. All in favor of the motion. And that is carried. I thank you very much to all. Enjoy the rest of your